Your job is done. I don't want you to do anything related to the project ever again. Apologies for length. TL. Doctor at the end. I work in technical theater design, and I was approached by a writer-producer to direct her show after I had been recommended to her by a mutual friend. Let's call her Jane. Jane had been working on this script for a couple years, and it was her baby. The script was actually pretty good, and the cast she had already hired was awesome. So I agreed to do the job. The show had already began rehearsals before I was hired, as the previous director had suddenly quit. After one rehearsal, I immediately realized why. Jane was an absolute nightmare. She had no idea what she was doing. She had never produced theater and knew nothing about any aspect of live event productions, blocking, lighting design, etc. However, she also wanted to control and micromanage everything. A majority of my job ended up consisting of her freaking out about something I had done, then me spending 20 minutes explaining why it had to be done. The cast hated her, and she made every rehearsal miserable. She wasn't interested in watching the scenes to see how good the actors were. She would spend every rehearsal buried in her script and getting upset each time an actor missed a word, or said them instead of they, or other minor easily fixable things. The only reason the cast stuck around is because this woman did have some industry contacts, and she was inviting them all to the show. She constantly bragged about it, and said she would share all her connections with the cast so they could benefit from the show. About 2 weeks before Tech Week, I realized she hadn't hired a lighting designer, booth operator, stage manager, or anyone at all to run the show. She had been expecting me to do it all once the time came. I almost quit on the spot, but I ultimately stuck in because the cast was so great, and I knew the show would never happen if I left. She'd never be able to do anything on her own. I ended up calling in a couple favors, and someone we got everything done. The show actually turned out great, and the audience loved it. She had paid a guy to professionally film 2 performances, and she really got great stuff on tape. After the show ended, the cast asked for a list of emails, numbers of the industry that was in attendance so their agents could follow up. Jane betrayed them and refused to share any info about her contacts. She said she didn't want them bothering people she knew. I was furious, so I sent her an email saying, "You need to share that list, it's what you promised. You owe it to them." She replied, "This is no longer any of your business. Your job is done. I don't want you to do anything related to the project ever again." Cue malicious compliance. 1 week later, she sent me an email. Apparently she was trying to raise funding to do the show again, and had entered the video she had recorded into an prestigious online theater festival. The audio didn't turn out great in the recording. She realized that she didn't have any of the sound effects, the marked production script, the QLab show file, the projections, the blocking notes. Nothing. I had done all the work, and had all the files. She had never even asked to see them before. If she wanted to replicate the show, she'd need these things. Otherwise, she'd have to pay someone to start from scratch. If she wanted to fix the audio, she'd need all the music and sound files. She demanded that I send her these things immediately. I replied, "Per your previous instructions, I am not to do any more work on this project. My job is done." Then I deleted everything. She was royally pissed. Her realizing she had nothing tangible to remount her show almost made it worth 2 months of painful rehearsals. TL. Was hired to direct, design a show. Theater producer makes everyone's life hell, then refuses to honor her promises to the cast. She tells me to get lost, then is dumbfounded when she realizes I have all the important files. I delete them and she can't reproduce her show without starting from scratch. Speaking as a director, this is why you never allow the author within a country mile of the production. Finally found someone who can properly use the word cue! Exclamation mark. It sounds like you have plenty of your own industry contacts. Given your level of skill and experience, I would drop quiet warnings to people about Jane and how unprofessional she is, how she treats staff, and how she lied to the cast. Nothing super loud. Don't want to be accused of gossip. Just a simple hey, heads up if this person comes sniffing around, don't take the job. When someone tells you they know all these important people, and they're going to give all of them your number, it's a lie. I've heard that one 1,000 times. Never ever fall for it. Run instead. Maybe that'll teach her to keep her promises from now on. But as a result of her actions, she might just have a few fewer industry contacts. About 2 weeks before Tech Week, I realized she hadn't hired a lighting designer, booth operator, stage manager, or anyone at all to run the show. Even with my limited tech experience, this line really said just how terrible she was. I can't imagine pulling off even an amateur show without a stage manager and tech crew. Oh, this has such similar vibes to the worst show I ever worked on. It was put on by a guy who was writing, producing, and directing. This project was his baby, and he was pouring money into making this thing happen. The cast was fabulous. The crew was experienced, but the man himself had no idea what he was doing, and yet was so sure he did that he wouldn't ever listen to the professionals in the room. This play was a wordy 3-hour-long behemoth, with a lot of scene changes and a truly absurd number of props. Between all our normal tasks plus trying to manage this guy's bad decisions, the stage manager and myself, I was the ASM, were totally swamped with work. The director had a friend that was at every rehearsal to help out, and she was going to be helping with scene changes during the run. So in the meantime we put her to work taking line notes. This was a major task with how many words that play had, and it made life so much easier to have this task taken off our plate. About a week before we went into tech, the director told the SM he had decided to take his friend off of the run and stop having her show up to rehearsals since we didn't have her doing anything. Anyway, we were, to put it mildly, irate. He was upset because we didn't have her doing scene changes on a set that didn't exist yet, because we were still in rehearsal, and apparently he didn't think line notes were a real job. After some stern words he brought her back on, but I quit the next day, with the blessing of the SM, who lamented that she couldn't bring herself to do the same, because it was just such a disrespectful move to make on a whim. And I had absolutely no patience left. I had only stayed that long because I felt like I had to stay to protect the cast. That's a story for another thread. But quitting felt so good, and my only regret is that I didn't start a trend. And hey, we were able to give the director what he wanted. His friend suddenly had a lot more to do, because suddenly she had to do my job too. How dare you do exactly what I tell you? Exclamation mark. Exclamation mark quote. As a production manager who is about to go into Q2Q, this was such a satisfying read. I've only had the misfortune of working with one bad director, who was not bad at directing per se, but was bad when it came to respecting crew. Good on you for standing up to her. You went all the way through rehearsals with no SM? Nightmare fuel. Couldn't negotiate to get her follow through on her promises? I had a similar experience. Old-time sleazy ball producer, director running children's theater. I was hired as the lighting designer. I had just left a bad gig, so I needed the work. The guy chain smoked cigars on stage during rehearsals. The lighting was held up by decorative chain looped around a nail. Half of the dimmers had completely fried and he just kept using them. The whole thing was a nightmare and I have a pile of stories about it. But focusing on the revenge moment, the director-producer was as shifty as they come. He viewed the whole thing as a way to line his pockets. The children paid to be in the production, and their families pay admission. He decided that he would make more money if he stopped paying the crew and turned them into volunteers. I told him that wasn't acceptable. If he wanted his show, he had to pay his crew. He wouldn't budge. I said okay. Me and the crew will be at my car smoking when you are ready to pay us. I then pulled my cue book and all of my programming from the board. I even unplugged it for good measure. The sound designer pulled all of her audio tracks and we joined the stage manager at my car for a few cigarettes. At curtain, some of the parents asked us why we weren't in our places to run the show. We told them. 5 minutes after curtain, the producer-director showed up at my car with cash in hand. Looking furious, I explained to him that after his breach in contract we all expected to be paid before each performance, or the stage would stay dark until we were. He actually listened and made sure we were paid every night. If I were an actor in that production, I'd contact said theater festival and let them know I never received the promised payment for my performance. Absolutely fabulous. Wonderful malicious compliance. This is not someone who should be continuing to work in theater. No one needs someone like that. Did she even have real contacts? Or is she just a liar lol? Malicious compliance. Go. Stand by. Instant regret. This is your warning for painful realization, followed immediately with loss of life's work to downstage left. Oh, this is so delightful. I've been in productions with people exactly like this. Right down to the grand promises and inevitable betrayal. It's so rare you get to actually see them get any comeuppance, much less participate in it. Well, I guess that was curtain call on her idiocy. I would have held her to ransom though. I would have responded, make good on your bargain with the cast to share your list of contacts. And send me 30% of the profits from the first show. Then you'll get the files you need. If it's not acted upon by this time next week, the cash ransom doubles. And the week after, the files are gone. Theater techie here. Now retired. I know and understand exactly what you went through. Delete them. Files. Some people need to learn the hard way. I know I did, but differently. I would like to think I learned about tech stuff by learning and making mistakes, but not by having personality problems. I did direct 3 amateur stage plays and won awards, so that was nice. No personality problems there. Kudos to you.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Ericast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.